Evolution is the changing of alleles in a population over time. When I was young, the mourning doves around Deming, New Mexico were all gray. I get upset every time I go back now and I look at the population of mourning doves and I see these doves that are gray, but on their wings they are white. I thought that those doves that had white wings were mostly kept as pets and somehow had gotten released into the population and caused a change in the dove population around Deming. But the more I think about it, I wonder how such a small group could make such a great change over a short period of time. I don't know if the white-winged mutant or white-winged dove is a mutation from the original population, or if it is a mutation that had taken over in a different area and has now invaded this one. All I know is for some reason the ones with the white wings seem to be more capable of surviving, and now the mourning dove population has the white wings instead of the regular gray body around Deming, mostly, which is kind of upsetting to me. I didn't like to see the change. I like to go back and see the regular old gray doves, but there's not a chance. The other ones are there, and they are there in force. Whether they evolved out of the population that was there, or whether they came in from somewhere else, whether they are a species that evolved sometime in the past and has moved in on the other one, or whether they are just a variant that happened in the population and has now taken over the area. Either way, the population has changed. The alleles in the population have changed over time. This has happened in my lifetime. This is called evolution. However you want to call it or look at it, it's evolution. Whether I like it or whether I don't like it, it's evolution. Evolution is the changing of the alleles in a population over time, and obviously the white wing has changed in the population over time. Evolution occurs. Evolution has occurred throughout the history of life, and we see the end result of it in the great deal of variation we see in our modern populations, whether they're in the wild as the dove or whether they're in the domesticated areas as the cattle, but even the wild cattle, as I said before, have varied greatly in the population. The genes of the population have changed over time, and you can call them cattle or you can call them whatever you want to. Overall, the name that encompasses them mostly is bovine. But there have been changes, and they carry the overall name of bovine because of the characteristics that they all contain. Another example of changes within a population could be what we call the jackrabbit. The jackrabbit is actually a hare. The hare population goes all the way up to Alaska. As you go further up, you get different variants that appear due to the selective factors of the environment. They look similar but not the same. However, up in Alaska and further north, they get to the point that they even change their hair color in the winter. Their body size is much larger. They are quite a bit different, but each layer will breed with those around it. So you have the variants in the middle that have the different mutations that allow the mixing between the populations. So it's kind of like a gradient of jackrabbits that goes all the way down to Florida. Now, people have done tests with these, and they have taken some of the ones from Florida, and they have attempted to breed them with those from Alaska. It doesn't work. They have so speciated, they have so separated, that even though they're rabbits, and even though they're of the same origin, and even though the ones from Florida can breed with the ones a little further north, and those can breed with the further north, and even though there's a continuous connection all the way in the breeding population from Florida to Alaska, the ones in Alaska cannot breed with the ones in Florida and produce viable offspring. This is the process that causes the isolation. If this happens within a population where you have a change, where you have different things selected for within an area, that's called sympatric evolution. If you have it where they are isolated and one group gets stuck far away by a bottleneck effect, it's called allopatric speciation. They've been separated by the fact that they have physical barriers. Those physical barriers have prevented them from being able to breed with the other population. There are species that have been isolated this way, and perhaps the same thing happened with humans and our other near relatives that have since gone extinct. But in California, there's a valley where you can start on one side of the valley and go around. In the same way as with the hares, all the way around, they can breed with the ones that came before. But when you get to the others, which are straight across the valley from one another, they cannot breed together. They have been isolated. That isolation has prevented them from being able to. This is called a ring species, because the whole thing is related, but it's not. So you have the different groups that are different enough at the ends that they cannot breed, but all the way along the way they can breed, and they can produce viable offspring. So from one side of the valley, the genes can still get into the population on the other side of the valley, although it takes a long time because it has to go around, and they are breeding with those that are close enough in similarity to them that they can be able to produce offspring all the way back around the valley until the genes still get there. But if you have something that causes a break there, and some of those in-between species get wiped out, then they will forever be isolated because they can no longer have the genes mixing. This is called breeding isolation. This is how evolution works. And this is how it worked with humans also. When you have a group that gets isolated into one small area, that is called a founding population, and that can be due to several different things. But a founder population can be a population that is isolated from another group and only carries the genes it has with it into the preceding population. So that's called the founder effect. In the case of humans and cheetahs, we had something that wasn't quite like that, because we had the founders, but the founders were the only ones that survived. All of the rest of the populations died out that were anywhere near similar. So that is called a bottleneck effect. The bottleneck is where you only have the genes that survive to work with. So you end up with a highly inbred population, which is what we are. You may think humans look quite different from one another, but in reality, they are all a part of a population of Homo sapiens. And in fact, even the Neanderthals were called Homo sapiens. They were that closely related to us. And now they've found out by looking at the genetic profiles, the genetic fingerprints of the Neanderthals and modern Homo sapiens, they have found out that we have, some populations have 4 or 5% of Neanderthal DNA. Other populations have very little, but we still have the genes within humanity of the Neanderthal people. They haven't gone away, they're with us still. They were Homo sapiens. They had the same capabilities in most ways that we have, and they also had the same ancestry far enough back. Same as the cattle I mentioned before. You can have behavioral isolation cause things to not breed, and in fact we have with humans sometimes groups that will not breed with other groups, not that they're incapable of it, but because they despise the way that the other groups behave. That's called behavioral isolation. It happens within animals, it happens within all kinds of things, and it causes evolution to occur. Evolution is something that occurs. You can't stop it because we have constant changes in our DNA. Even when we go through the process of meiosis, it changes the DNA, and each generation has different changes that show up. If those changes can be selected for, or should be selected for, or give great survivability, or impress the ladies a lot, those will be carried on to the next generation more often than the others. That's called evolution. You can like evolution or you cannot like evolution, but evolution occurs. Evolution is only the changing of the genes in a population over time. That changing can be due to genetic isolation, breeding isolation, due to bottleneck effect, or even due to just founder effect, or just to sympatric evolution where they just don't like the other ones and they will not breed with them because of something like they don't sing right, or they don't look right, or they don't frown right, or whatever, they have the wrong color or whatever. All of these things can happen. You can have within a population isolation to the point that you have speciation occur. When people go around saying that evolution does not occur, they really don't know what they're talking about. They don't even understand what evolution means, and they're doing nothing but sticking their foot in their mouth and telling everybody how ignorant they are, which is kind of sad, because we have so much information available for anybody to look up and to find out that this occurs. It's not like we're living in a time that doesn't have information. This is called the information era for a reason. Almost everybody has a little phone in their pocket that is a bigger computer than what the computers were that when we first had supercomputers. You have bigger than what were the first supercomputers that took rooms to fill. The ENIAC couldn't do what tiny calculators can do now. The computers that put us on the moon were not as good as the iPhones that are sold to everybody. You have information all over the internet, and yeah, I know a bunch of idiots like Ken Hovind and Eric Hovind and Ken Ham fill the internet with foolishness, but that doesn't mean that those idiots don't have to be responsible for the information that is real and out there. It doesn't mean that they're the only ones that you can look at. Yeah, you can have the Templeton group that is trying to pretend like they're science. You can have the Discovery Institution that's out there trying to lie and manipulate and promote religion. Yeah, you can have all of these guys that are doing all of this stuff. You can have Dwayne Gish Gallup that's dead now, and you can have all of these guys that did all of their foolish stuff and told all their lies, and you can only listen to them, or you can stick your nose out and you can look for information, and you can find out that they are a small minority and that the things they say are lies. When they talk about irreducible complexity, everything that they say has been disproven. When they tell lies about what Darwin said, all you have to do is go back and read on the origin of species and see that they lied. You don't have to go with the stuff they say. If people are lying, they're lying. It doesn't matter if they are going and trying to promote whatever cultish mentality that they want, and it doesn't matter if you want to. It's still a lie if it is a lie. The information is available. Science is there to look up and find out. The only purpose of science is to find out the truth. And if the truth was there, science would support them if what they said was true. Because science does not care. It just wants to find what the evidence supports. And at this point, all of the evidence supports evolution. And the theory of evolution did say that all original things came from original cell. All things came from one original cell way back in history, and all of the evidence that we find supports that. All the way down to the fingerprint that you can trace way back in time to different species of animals and show how they are related. You can look at the genes. You can look at the DNA and see the relationship. You can badmouth things with no evidence. You can lie and manipulate and mock. It doesn't change the truth. Are you honest or are you a liar? Are you going to follow the liars, or are you going to go stick your head in the books, stick your head into the information, and find out what is really going on? Are you weak and prefer to remain ignorant, or are you willing to stick your nose out and learn something? Lazy people don't learn. These used car salesmen, they get their power. I'm talking about the religious used car salesmen. Ken Ham, Ken Hovind, Eric Hovind. These guys like that, the ones that are dead that have said the same things, the ones that have tried to manipulate and destroy the educational system by imposing the stuff they call intelligent design, and before that they called it creationism, and try to kick out real knowledge. Those people are still out there. They're still doing their used car salesman stuff. They're still telling the same old lies that they've been telling for years, the lies that have been taken to court, the lies that have been proven to be lies. And if you choose to follow them, you're just choosing to follow liars. Evolution is the changing of the genes in a population over time. The theory of evolution, it has been proven beyond any doubt. A theory is something that is based upon, that explains the laws. The laws are things that happen. The laws of nature happen. The theories describe why they happen. The theory of evolution describes why all of the things that occur in evolution occur. Evolution is nothing more, nothing less than the changing of the genes in a population over time. And it has to do with living things. Biological evolution I'm talking about.